Greetings, my name is Ehav Ever, and I will be presenting to you Masoth, The Journey Beyond the Indiegogo. So before I get into what exactly I'm proposing, I think it's important to answer a very critical question, and that is, who am I? My name is Ehav Ever, and I guess you could say, a jack of many trades, and I've had experiences around the world because of my cultural background, which leads me into the project that I'll be proposing. As you can see written here, my goal is to raise $4,000 for the self-publication of a book that I've written called Masoth, The Journey Beyond, which is a novel of about 250 to 350 pages, with what I consider to be a new and interesting storyline. The primary title of the book, Masoth, is derived from a Hebrew word which means a journey. I felt this particular primary title was necessary, especially when I considered how exactly this book came to be, through two sources, one being a dream that I had several years ago, as well as my personal journey through the world. In 2010, I decided to commit the dream and this concept of my journeys throughout the world into writing, which resulted in a number of ideas, which became the basis of this novel. This is what I would call the novel's literary perspective. Meaning, what exactly makes this novel essential, what makes it different, as well as what makes it even important to even read something like this. And what you see here listed is the things that I got out of, I guess you could say, my perspective from writing it and also reading it. When I consider the significance of the novel, there are several things that have to be discussed in terms of how it works. One deals with the idea that I'm using for this book, science fiction, to get across a certain message about the main character, about his struggles, about many of the things that he's experienced in the world. And this is a perspective I use to kind of push as a vehicle to push the story along. Now, for anyone who's not into sci-fi, don't worry, the sci-fi is really a plot device to do the analysis that I want to do. What I mean by all of this can probably be summed up with the use of a number of words, keywords that I would use to describe the book. And these keywords, I think, are something that, usually from the time that we're born until the time that we, pass away, everyone, I think, around the world has sometimes questions of, relevance, in terms of their self, in terms of their destiny, what they were created for, why are we here, these kind of things. But then also, I think, even smaller than that, who am I as a person, as an individual, and how does that play out in terms of what I'm supposed to do with my life, and how can I become something more than what I am. All of these things come into play in this book, and come to, I guess you can say, a focal point in terms of the main character and his own self-realization and his own masoth, his own journey beyond. So with taking this story and placing it in a different universe, you can actually, I guess you could say, separate the individual from the everyday normal struggles that we as people have, no matter where we are in the world. You can, from there, kind of, I guess, get a perspective of where his heart really is, because he should be supposedly okay being so far away from Earth. But is he really? Is his life any different than it could be on Earth? The main character of this story deals with all these issues for one simple reason. And that simple reason is, basically, the main character of this story is really me. One of the questions I often get when I start talking about this book is, why self-publish? What is listed here are some of the reasons that I came up with in terms of why I would self-publish. In short, part of the problem I have is that when you write such a personal thing in a novel form, the question is, why should someone else own it? To date, I've accomplished a number of milestones, which you see listed here, which is kind of the current status of the work. Initially started thinking I was only writing one book until I figured out that I had two books in my hand. I got a copyright for both of those books, but decided to only focus in so far on what I consider the first book. So what you see right here is what I would call the second edit of the book. This is when I still had, I guess you could say, both books as one book. And this gives you an idea of some of the editing process I was going through after I printed the first print of it out. Of course, what is a book without artwork? So I found an artist named Poriel, and he started doing some initial drafts from the ideas I sent him. And this is where we are at the moment, and there's still a final version that's coming out real soon. What is listed here is what I consider the final stages of the book, including the process of picking a self-publishing company, all the way down to actually marketing the book. The idea being, of course, that this is a book, that is for sale. This is something that I want to be able to put into the market. So this brings me to the reason that I'm on Indiegogo, the fact that it'll cost money to produce this book. So what you see listed here is what I've estimated as the cost, which is what I'm trying to get $4,000 for donations. This donation or funding, basically is the publication cost of the book. Now, one of the principal ideas behind this approach at getting these kind of donations is that you don't get something for nothing, if you will. Giving, I should say, something for nothing. I came up with several ideas of how to, I guess you could say, pay back those who donate money. You can see the 3 levels that I've listed here as my strategic ways of making it beneficial to those of you who actually do see this as an interesting idea that you would like to donate to. So to bring it home, or summarize it, so to speak, I have written a novel called Masoth, The Journey Beyond, which I am trying to self-publish at a cost of about $4,000. The novel has an interesting background behind it, as I've mentioned before, and it's a perspective that's very seldom heard in sci-fi. So with that ends my presentation. If you have any questions or anything that you would like to ask me, you can feel free to contact me through the following websites.